Yo. Hey guys, it's poppin'. Jacques Slade here. Back with another unboxing, and today, we have got something special for you. I've been waiting for this for a very long time. It's a very significant piece of footwear, and I think this is a big deal, and it means a lot of things outside of just this shoe, but we'll get into all of those things as this video goes on. But for right now, for those that are wondering, this is the LeBron 20. This is going to be an unboxing and first impressions, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm gonna get a little technical here, so if you just want to know the basic things about this shoe, here you go. It releases on the 29th of September, and it's $200, and it's a low top. Let's get right to it. All right, first up, let's just go with the box. Starting out with the box, it's the slide out drawer type box. It has the strive for greatness, and then it has details on where LeBron has played in his career. On the back side, they have the X and the X, the Roman numerals for 20, 10, and 10. That's 20. And then you have the LJ crown logo there, and then you have the two X's under there. It's pretty fancy, honestly. This feels to me like a luxury version of a signature basketball shoe. Some of the details that you'll see on the shoe feel like they've upscaled it a little bit. Now, the materials aren't necessarily upscaled, but the detailing and how they designed the shoe feels like it's upscaled, if that makes sense. For those that are in the sneaker world, you should understand a little bit about that. But without further ado, let's hop right in it and get the actual shoes. The slide out box comes with a card that gives the details on the technology in the shoe. I'm gonna get to that in just a second, so let's set that aside. And then you have the paper. The paper, you can't really see it now, but the paper has this detailing on it where you can actually see some different things that have happened throughout LeBron's career. But let's get the shoes out, and here you go. Yeah, see, this is, I'm gonna say, the next level for LeBron. This is Nike really taking LeBron up a notch, and that's pretty exciting for me. And that's not just because he's a Laker and I'm a Laker fan. I think what Nike basketball is doing with LeBron's shoe right now is something totally different. So as you can see, they come with an extra set of laces if you're into the laces thing. I like it because it adds an extra pop of color. Colorway, it's called Barely Green Multicolor. So I guess that's the Barely Green Multicolor. As you see, they have like a hot pink and all those colors mixed in. It's a very Miami style touch to the shoe. So a couple of things right off the back. This upper, it's a material that I am not familiar with. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's kind of a mesh, but it's like woven on top of each other, and it has this like slight symmetrical pattern to it. It's soft, but it's not like super soft, and it's not super hard either. It almost kind of reminds me of, it's almost like if you've ever had an actual potato sack, like those sacks of potatoes you ever doing like a potato sack race. That's kind of what this material reminds me of. So that makes me feel like it's gonna be really strong and really durable. But on the flip side of that, it makes me feel like it's not gonna be very stretchy. Now, it's not obviously as hard and coarse as the materials that you get on like a potato sack, but the way that it's woven and the way that it appears reminds me of that. Again, that's just my first impressions just from seeing it right off the top. The other thing you're going to notice right away is the double swoosh, or really triple swoosh. So there's one swoosh here, there's the internal swoosh, and then you have the external swoosh here, and it pops off at the end here a little bit, which concerns me a little bit that this is going to get ripped off. But again, first impressions, we'll see how this weathers up over time, or how this holds up over time. One thing you'll notice on the swoosh is that it's iridescent, so you have a big change of color there on the swoosh, which looks good. And then you have that barely green with the hints of orange on the internal swoosh. And speaking of that barely green actually pops up again on the piping. So you have this piping that goes around the laces and then also goes around the ankle. Now, that's not actually a layer of the shoe. That's literally just piping that goes around the shoe. It's made of some sort of like synthetic plasticky filling material. And you get that same material here on the lace eyelets here. That is a double layer though. So you have a layer here, and then there's an internal layer as well that isn't as plastically. That same material is used on the top of the tongue, and then you go back to the sort of tweed-like material on the tongue as well. So I'll unlace these a little bit so you can get a better view. But you can see that they go back to that same sort of like tweed-like material there on the tongue that they have on the rest of the upper of the shoe. Now, technology-wise, there's a couple of things happening with the LeBron 20 that I think are pretty exciting. First off, they have top-loaded zoom. Now, you have a tech card here, and on here it kind of tells you that it says it's Air Zoom in the front. I believe it's the Air Zoom in the front, and then in the back they have, the Turbo Zoom in the front, and then the Air Zoom in the back, and it's top loaded. So for those that don't know what top loaded zoom is, imagine that this is the midsole of your shoe. So midsole is this section here. So on this section, they have top loaded zoom, which means that they embed the zoom into the top of the midsole. Then they have regular zoom here in the heel that's loaded beneath the midsole. And then you have the outsole. So you have the outsole, zoom, midsole, the top loaded zoom unit. Then you have the strobo board. Then on top of that, you have the sock liner, and on top of the sock liner is where you put your foot. So I tried these on briefly, and you can feel the zoom here in the forefoot, but you can really see it here or feel it here on the midsole, and it goes to, I would say, right after the ball of your foot. So you can feel that responsiveness all the way through right before you hit the toe, before your toes start to crest over. Now, that feeling is good. The unit is super, super responsive, and you feel it right away as soon as you put your foot in. These sock liners are pretty thin. I would say they're average. They're not the best sock liners I've ever had in a shoe, and they're not the worst. So they're pretty run-of-the-mill in between, but they do give you enough responsiveness so you can feel it, the Air Zoom unit. I didn't feel the heel unit as much, and part of that is because of this midsole, which is made out of Cushlon. So you have Cushlon foam running all the way through from the toe to the heel, and the Air unit, the Zoom unit, is in the heel here, so you don't really feel that as much. Other technology that they're doing is carbon fiber, and you can see it pretty obviously here. It looks like a small, thin piece. You can almost see it here in the shoe, that it goes from about here to right about here. So you have a carbon fiber shank that's probably about this big in the shoe. You can kind of see it. And then speaking of the outsole, this is called multi-directional tracking. It's actually pretty soft, to be honest, so I wouldn't recommend playing in these outside. But the outsole actually has a lot of Easter eggs about LeBron's career. Great job of almost hiding them, and it kind of sucks that they're on the outsole, because the outsole is going to get worn out and you don't really get to see them on the upper. The other thing about the shoe is this outrigger here on the lateral side. Now, this pattern that you see here is actually repeated on the insoles of the shoe. So you get that same flower with symbol patterns that has a couple of dates inside of there. Earlier, I mentioned that these feel like they're taking things up and almost making this like a luxury shoe. And the reason I mentioned that most specifically is because of the detailing here on the heel. So this little patch, it's almost like something that they do with like luxury clothing or white label clothing that has this like special touch, almost like this hand stitched and handmade sort of feel to it. And you can see that it has the LeBron logo with like the squirrely lines around it, which is actually it's the exact logo that they have on the underside of the box. Something else that's on the heel, and I'm not sure that this is what this is, but I think this outsole pattern that goes into the midsole, I think that's supposed to represent the LeBron, the LJ logo. I'm not sure, but I think that's what that is. Another detail that kind of gave me that luxury feel is on the inside, on the insole. It has the XX for the 20 on the LeBron logo right here on the heel of the insole. What's the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, I guess luxurious. It has a very like luxurious feel to it that adds a little bit of luxury to the way that the shoe is made. The other thing that you might want to pay attention to when it comes to these are the 20. There's 20 everywhere on the shoe. You have it on the lace dubray with the XX. You have the XX stitched into the tongue on both of the tongues. And then on the actual laces, where they use to keep the laces tied to the tongue, they use an X there as well. So you have an X on the left and an X on the right. Overall, my thought is, like, this is the next step for LeBron. LeBron's never had a low top shoe, and this is the first time they're introducing that. LeBron doesn't usually do Zoom. He usually does Air Max in some version, and you see that happening here as well. You have the return of the Dunk Man on the shoe. Again, a throwback to LeBron's career, his signature career, and his basketball career. So you get the touch of the Dunk Man there. And then you have this little plug here on the inside. And again, a super small detail, but it has like the LeBron crown logo in there as well. It's just a lot of little things, I think, that add up to make this one of the most, I would say it adds up to make the shoe one of the more exciting LeBron signature releases that I've seen in a long time. And they even add a little bit of off-white flair to it. So if you look at the tongue, it's actually undone a little bit. You know how with the off-white, how the tongue was unfinished? You get a little bit of that unfinished feel here on the tongue. And if we're going to go really deep, my thought is they keep the tongue unfinished as a way of saying that LeBron's not finished as well. The unfinished design, the unfinished career, he's still going. He's still got some moves to make. He's still got some games to play. He still has some buckets to score. I don't know if that's what Jason Petrie meant when he wanted to do that, but it's just something that I thought about when I noticed that they had the unfinished edge there on the shoe. So another thing that I would think about is sizing. So again, this is not a review. This is just my first impressions. I had an opportunity to try these on. I'm usually an 11 and a half. And these feel a little snug, and I have on thin socks. Now, when I typically play basketball, I usually wear like thicker elite socks, and I don't know how comfortable my foot would be in 11 and a half with a thicker sock on. So I would take caution with these and maybe go half size up or even a full size up, kind of depending on how or what type of socks you wear and how you like your shoes to feel. Now, these are going to release on the 29th. They're going to be $200, and they kind of document LeBron's career from the Zoom generation to today with the LeBron 20. And I think it's an exciting time in signature sneakers, especially when it comes to Nike basketball and what they're doing with LeBron and what LeBron has been able to do over his career, and Jason Petrie translating that into a sneaker. I think this is going to be a moment, and it almost harkens to this is LeBron's moment to move on to the next generation. So we'll see how that goes and see what happens. Anyway, as always, make sure you like, favorite, and subscribe. I want to give a big shout out to Nike Basketball for sending these over for me to review. I am Jacques Slade. As always, I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys soon. Peace.